Yeah, no, he came in this morning not feeling well. We had the docs look at him, test him. He's tested positive for flu. And so, unfortunate, but, part of getting through an NBA season.
Will he make the trip with you all to start at least?
I don't think that's been determined, but I think with the positive test, and being contagious, my guess is he will, not start with us and then hopefully join us some point early in the trip.
Give you one guess who he's talking about, but you're not going to need it. That's Yusuf Nurkic that Mike Budenholzer is referring to, who was a DNP against Atlanta on Thursday, was a DNP coach's decision Saturday against the Utah Jazz, and they didn't play last night against the Charlotte Hornets because of the flu that's going to keep him from at least starting this road trip that the Suns begin tomorrow without their center. And it is, once again, flu bug or not, him not playing.
Yeah, he's being phased out completely.
It feels like it, right? I mean, you just watch it. It's like he's just not there anymore.
No, I think that they've determined that they're just a better basketball team, without him. And, you saw Oso get a lot of minutes last night, and Plumlee got in foul trouble, but he only had the two, and they kind of really put him back in the game. They kind of rolled with Oso for most of it. We're going to talk about the center position later, but, that's what they got right now. They'd like to get a different center. There were rumors over the weekend about, that the Suns and Hornets had talked about Nurkic for Nick Richards. Now, what I was able to find out about that is the Suns do like Nick Richards. They like him. They like his contract. He's athletic. There's just a feeling that Charlotte doesn't want Nurkic, Charlotte wants assets. They want assets. But they don't really want to take back a contract that ends, doesn't end, this year and has a full another year on it. So could you do a Kogi? Josh Okogie didn't play last night, right? He was a DNP, did not play. I kept my eye on that because his numbers are dwindling now too, and he could be a guy that we've known he's had a tradable contract ever since, they did that deal. So could you do a Kogi for Richards and a couple of second-round picks? Charlotte's just looking to get assets. So can they tank and get some second-round picks? They're willing to do that. I don't know if they would take back Nurkic. As of the other day, they weren't willing to take Nurkic in a block. It would be a bigger deal because, the Suns might have to take back like Grant Williams or somebody to make the numbers work. Charlotte's under the cap, so they could take back salary. So that makes it easier to do a deal with them. But I do know that the Suns are working on it. It's what I reported the other day is I do believe the two sides are working on this. There is a way to make it happen, but it is not a sure thing. So still working on it, but not a sure thing.
Yeah, Grant Williams has a couple years left on his contract. As Nurk's contract seemed to be as kind of immovable, it's going to take the right kind of situation. The interesting, I'll say this about Josh Okogie too. Since you brought him up, I'll point out this is potentially a moving week for Josh Okogie, and here's the reason why. He's eligible to be traded this week. He has not been eligible until before this week. January 15th is the first day you're allowed to trade a free agent of your own that you re-signed in the offseason. So January 15th is the first day the Suns are allowed to. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to move Josh Okogie, but it's kind of, remember that date? We were doing this with DeAndre Ayton when they re-signed him to that contract extension a few years ago.
Yeah.
And we were looking at this date in the calendar like, are they going to move him then? Are they going to move him then?
They were playing like the Nets that day,
They were, right?
Correctly.
Everybody thought that's where he was going to go because they didn't want him at the time, and it ends up they still didn't want him when it was all said and done. But that's what we're watching for with Okogie. The interesting, like if you zoom out and look at this from 30,000 feet, the interesting thing in all of this is you and I just spent the last 3 minutes talking about Suns trade possibilities.
And not Jimmy Butler.
Not Jimmy Butler.
No.
None of them have anything to do with Jimmy Butler. It was very quiet over the weekend with Jimmy Butler, and maybe this is the new reality we're all going to have to start to get used to here, is that the Jimmy Butler thing,
or minor tweaks,
just isn't going to happen. And if you're going to look for any kind of improvement, it's going to have to be a minor tweak like this, potentially.
Yeah, I think that none of these deals involve Bradley Beal, so I think you could still work on two things at one time. I had someone message me the other day like, hey, I think this deal's done. It's going to be announced on the 15th, for Richards. But I was told it's not true. They're trying to get this deal done. The Suns are trying to get Nick Richards. There's no deal done right now. They're hoping to make a deal work. They like Richards. They like his athleticism. They like him as either a starter or a backup center. But if Nurkic isn't going to play anymore, then, you need, and they're going to try to get rid of Nurkic. They want to make sure they have another center out there, not just Plumlee and Oso. They need another big body guy out there.
Oso played 30 minutes last night.
He did.
Mason Plumlee only played 15. I mean,
I'll tell you later. I thought Oso was the key to them winning that game last night. I think without Oso Aguadaro, they don't win that basketball game, and I'll tell you why later.
Yeah.
But that's why I think Oso won that game for them.
Bobby Marks from today says, at this point, the strong likelihood is that Jimmy Butler's not going anywhere, and he ends up picking up his option next year.
Miami's been pretty firm as far as what they're looking for. They're not looking for Bradley Beal and what's left of his contract. They're not looking for long-term salary that could be a hindrance. I think there is a strong likelihood that he's on this roster when we get past February 6th and he picks up that 52. I know it's been reported that he's going to decline that option and become a free agent. But when you have $52 million on the table, you have to have a home to go to. So I think it would be more likely to opt into the contract and then see where you stand as far as from a trade standpoint here. Both sides need each other. I don't know how the train got off the track here, but Miami needs Butler and Butler needs Miami, even if the long-term play isn't going to be the Heat here. And I think the big question is when the suspension is lifted, where is his mindset as far as where he is? Because that's going to play a big role as far as the next couple of weeks. And if his mindset isn't there and then we kind of revert back to what we've had, they could just suspend him again, so we can go through this cycle here, which is not the best interest for anyone.
You look intrigued over there. What's captured your attention on this one?
When couples go through this, they have like marriage counseling.
Yes.
Right? They can what do NBA players and ownerships do when you need is there counseling for players and owners? Is there a Dr. Melfi that gets Pat Riley and Jimmy Butler in a room? No, Pat, I'm sorry. Jimmy's talking now. Let him express his feelings, Pat. Just, Pat, stop interrupting. Let Jimmy express his feelings. And then, I just wonder there's going to be a reconciliation and Jimmy Butler's going to pick up his option with Miami and everything's going to be hunky-dory. How do you make that work? How do you make that work?
Okay, well, all right. I'm laughing at your Dr. Melfi references. I would imagine some of it is probably the owner, right? Like the owner is the Dr. Melfi.
Oh, the owner.
Mickey Harrison is like the one who says, "Okay,
sit down,
Pat, Jimmy. Let's make this work. We got to figure this out. Come on, what are we doing here?" Or maybe you don't need to Bobby's point. All right, you can only leave if you know where else you're gonna go.
Yeah.
If Jimmy's looking at the landscape and going, "Man,
I got nowhere
else to go. I got $52 million on the table from a team that's always good every single year." The hell am I talking about here?
Right.
I'm going to say no to $52 million just to prove a point, just because I can't get traded. At least I can't get traded where I want to go. No one's going to give me the contract extension I want, at least no one that I want to play for because nobody's got any cap space. I mean, look, Gambo, the one, and I know we're really going off the deep end here, but the one unintended consequence of tax aprons and second aprons and all this stuff, nobody's got any room.
Nobody's got any room.
Nobody's got financial flexibility.
No, he can't opt out and go sign where he wants to go.
Exactly. There are so few teams that actually have the ability to do anything about Jimmy Butler. That
and he's not going to those teams.
His smart people who run his financing and his agents are looking at it and say, "Jimmy, look, you might have to eat a little crow on this, babe, and go back to the Miami Heat because the way it stands right now, the $52 million from them, that's the best you've got. You're not going to get anything better than that.
Yeah.
This just ain't going to happen. And so that they might not need a counselor if common sense is kind of injecting itself into Jimmy Butler's conversation here.
There's a song about this.
Is there?
Yeah. It's called If You Can't Be With the One You Love, Love the One You're With.
Yes, indeed, there is.
By Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And that's what Jimmy Butler's doing right now. If you can't be with the Phoenix Suns, then love the Miami Heat because there's 50 million reasons to love the Miami Heat.
50 million reasons. And they're a better basketball team. At least last time I checked the standings, they were a better basketball team. I don't know how they did this weekend. So this might be the reality, Suns fans, that were all, hey, the Jimmy Butler stuff was fun. It drove, in some ways, wasn't this not like the Kevin Durant conversation? Not when the Suns got him.
When they initially tried to get him?
The first time they tried to get him.
Yeah.
And we talked about it, and we talked about it.
And I said they didn't want DeAndre Ayton, and it killed the whole deal.
I know, but we still kept talking about it for weeks on end. Like, could it? Would it? Should it? And then eventually it just kind of petered out and died. This might be exactly the same situation where we've talked about it, and it just at the end of the day, all parties realize it ain't going to work. It ain't going to work. It ain't going to happen. So Kevin Durant go back to Brooklyn, and DeAndre Ayton go back to the Suns, and just
we'll figure it out down the road.
If you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with.
It's a big song. It's a popular song.
I kept. I was like,
You
half
like it? Listen,
I was half
can't
expecting to
be
hear
the one you
the
love.
guitar riff in the
Love
background.
the one you with.
Thanks for watching Burns and Gambo. Click to see more from the guys and hit the button in the middle to subscribe so you never miss a video from Arizona sports.